governor there saying that he is optimistic about the revival, about the increase in demand from rural economy, and he quoted auto sales there. He quoted various, consumption figures and practices there, which essentially hinting at there is a revival in rural India.
Right, and also there are risks to that revival as well because of the way the monsoon is going to play
Absolutely.
out. Yes, the risks.
And there's an eye on monsoon as well.
Yes, there was talk of the kind of monsoon that we're expecting. There are El Nino risks to the upcoming monsoons. It is being predicted to be below than average monsoon in the coming year. How it affects the Kharif crop will have a lot to say in terms of its impact on the GDP of India. But the fact of the matter is that the rural economy has been doing well. Is one of the important reasons why we did post 7.2% growth for the last financial year that just concluded in the month of March. And that's been mentioned by the OECD and the World Bank Group report. It was on the back of good agri output and rural output that that growth was seen, and it was above 7% at 7.2%. So the rural economy is certainly on the revival path. What would be interesting to see is how will that revival be affected by be it the monsoon and the rainfall, which is be the primary factor, and of course the rate tightening that has happened over the course of the last 1 year, that will start showing up in the urban economy and the rural economy over the course of this year.
Okay, Subhomoy, when we were discussing numbers that came out for financial year 23, of course growth pegged at 7.2%, also on the back of agri growth above 5% for the financial year gone by, mainly due to the fact that it's been a good year. So a lot of it also depends on the weather, the climatic conditions, and there is a prediction of El Nino. Monsoon has been late to reach Kerala. It usually reaches in the first week of June. There's been some sort of lag there, so that could in a sense affect the overall agri output and rural economy at large, and that will have obviously repercussions on the growth estimates for this year.
Actually, that's a very interesting thing that you're raising. You know, when we were doing college economics at that time, one of the expectations was that the Indian manufacturing sector, which was about 14% at the time, and roughly parallel to the agriculture sector, will actually come up higher. Today, if you look at the GDP data, the agricultural sector outpaces the manufacturing sector by a considerable margin. The services sector, of course, has grown only bigger. But what it does show is that we are now more of an agro and a services sector economy than a manufacturing, the secondary sector dominated economy, or at least playing a significant part. Till that changes, yes, agriculture, what happens in the agricultural sector and all its ramifications are today probably more significant for the Indian economy than it used to be several years ago. But that is something which probably is a very important changer in the Indian economy. That today, we are talking about the rural demand, you're talking about cooperative banks, we are talking about consumption habits in rural economy. These are like very significant. The rural-urban spread is a different thing from from agriculture and manufacturing, because many of the rural sector is also part of the urban. So what I mean is that the agricultural economy is now today much bigger than the manufacturing economy. And that is a change that has happened slowly. It has happened big time. And that is definitely having an impact on the economy. So you're right about, the monsoons, the weather things, all affecting how agriculture affects. So to that extent, irrigation becomes better, or drip irrigation and, crop diversification works better. Millets program works better. All of these things will have an impact. Yes.
Absolutely. And crop diversification also interesting, because the government has just announced an increase in MSP solely to diversify crops. That remains a major concern with us, Karan. But, alluding to what Subhomoy has been saying, we are on the path of becoming a services and an agri economy, steering a little away from manufacturing, at least from the data that has come out in the last quarter of financial year 23 is concerned.
Very interesting analogy, Shweta, that we use in the Economist community. And we associate the performance of the agriculture sector with this if poem, where men may come and men may go, but I go on forever. So what that means is that the agri sector always records a growth of around 4%. Now it could be 50 bips upper or lower in the band, but it's almost around 4%. So that being said, I think rural demand remains robust for now, and monsoon and the reservoir capacity always remains the primary monitorable as far as the sector is concerned. So again, it all depends on how the monsoon fares, and if it as expected, then we will see the current trend to continue and rural consumption to remain robust. But apart from that, as far as MSP is concerned, Shweta, I'm a big skeptic of MSP, primarily because MSP does not meet its target. MSP's primary purpose is to be the lower level of prices, but farmers rarely get paid the MSP, primarily because the rural market is extremely concentrated. It is not the farm bill did not take flight. A reformation in this sector is something that is really needed at this point in time. So I think unless we really formalize the sector and we open up the rural economy, I think we will continue to be in this 4 to 4.5% growth perennially, and that would not be good for the rural economy in the long term.
Okay. So, Karan, they're not agreeing with the rise and the hike in MSP, but Subhomoy, what's your stance? Let me quickly apprise our viewers at this point in time, because MSP for 14 mandated Kharif crop was increased. Government announced an increase in MSP for key pulses like moong, oil seeds such as sesame and groundnut were hiked by over 10%. For popular ones, it was hiked by about 7%. For paddy specifically, it was hiked 7%. So an overall increase there in MSP that was announced by the way of a cabinet decision yesterday. Are you a believer of high MSP, or like Karan, do you not believe that hike in MSP is going to yield much output?
Shweta, I am not talking about MSP. That is a political call, and I would go with what Karan is saying. But
MSP economically, Subhomoy, are you from the point of view of economics?
No, it isn't. I mean, he's right about the fact that MSP doesn't really work on. It is not supposed to be a dole, okay. So it has to be much more based on the farmers should get much more better signal, and that's what I'm saying. That the agricultural sector, whether it does well or good, well or bad, will not depend on. You can't just be basing it itself on MSP. MSP is a political question. What my basic point is that if you look at the GDP today, the agricultural sector is much more bigger than the manufacturing sector. And given that sort of a situation, you therefore need to bring in more robust policies to make the agricultural sector active. I mean, get more farmers to earn better income, because that is where the economy is. So there's no point saying that the agricultural sector will, pick up the slack after manufacturing sector has done, and so on and so forth. It is now much more significant a player in the Indian economy, and that is something that we need to understand. This is not the same as rural-urban. The urban area is increasing. So as I said, the agriculture sector, large part of it is also seeping into the urban sector. So rural-urban dichotomy is not the same as agriculture-manufacturing dichotomy. The two are different. And MSP is simply a means to give, it is supposed to be for 23 crops. It doesn't really work for all those crops, and that there's a problem that we recognize. But you need the agriculture sector to have proper pricing signals. You need to invest more in things like logistics, irrigation, as I said, transport capacities, better dues from farmers about the power that they consume. And obviously, a very major aspect of that means that our green economy also has to be agriculture. Has to look at what agriculture is doing in terms of putting more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So all of those things come in. But so basically, the point is that we can't deny that our GDP distinction will now be based on these two for considerable amount of time till the manufacturing sector comes into being, comes into place. And that is a very long haul. Not really there at the moment.